It's the game of the year, 2024.
Once again, we're here to talk about games.
Instead, the theme of this video is me going to be like, damn it. No, it was actually... I actually thought this was going to be like kind of a crummy year until... I know we actually said this happens recently. The back half. Not the back half. The back, like, quarter.
Yeah.
Really shot up. Like, a lot of the games on our list were released in, like, the last 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that kind of happens.
A lot of publishers like to shove their biggest titles right at the end of the year.
I don't know.
Christmas time.
Like, maybe last year threw me off because I feel like there were a couple right out the gate. But we got 10 of them. Let's screw the preamble. Let's just get right on into it. Let's talk about number 10, which is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, why don't you start?
It's a
Since
good game.
You love Prince of Persia so much.
It's a Metroidvania style game where you
Like those.
are a side-scrolling guy, and
You're a
you
side-scrolling guy.
explore a world, and you gain abilities over time that help you explore new areas.
We've heard all this before.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. Why this game for you?
It feels really good to play. Really cool
I shouldn't say for you.
platforming.
It's our list. I like the game too.
Really good. Well, the combat, like sometimes the bosses feel a little cheap, but overall it feels fun to mess around with it.
I was frustrated by them a little bit, but I will give the game credit that I think the combat system is like way deeper than I would have expected from it. And
Yeah, you can do a lot with it, especially when you gain the ability to like create a double of yourself. And
yeah. I actually feel like I didn't
together.
engage as much with the combat as I probably should have. Like the little bits of the tutorials I did, I was like, oh, I could totally be owning dudes a lot better than I am. Like I kind of just learned the basics and I'm like, all right, I'm good. But like juggling and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of depth there. A lot of cool secrets and techniques you can learn that it's just fun moment to moment.
It reminded me a bit of Ori. I mean, not just because it's Metroidvania, but because like Ori had really good like traversal.
Yeah.
And I think true to the Prince of Persia form, it has like all these like trap rooms and stuff where you have to like, you know, not touch the floor and stuff like that and just get through all this crap by wall sliding and, you know, like you said, the shadow ability where you kind of teleport around and stuff is kind of cool.
Yeah, it sort of fits into that like Souls-inspired Metroidvania Metroidvania where like Ori and Hollow Knight, like they have elements of both like subgenres mixed together.
It's a shame the game didn't do better because I think that studio got shut down now, right?
Well, the developers have all been like moved to other teams within Ubisoft.
I mean, I'm sure it's clearly a talented team behind it.
I think they made it's like a really long game for what it is, and I think because of that, the price was higher than you might have expected for like a 2D game.
That's always been such a bummer to me that like this kind of game isn't typically made by like a big studio like Ubisoft or a big publisher like Ubisoft, and like you would tend to see this these days from like an indie team. Yeah. And I mean, maybe it's case in point of why, because they shuttered the studio afterwards. But like, it's it's cool to see that.
Good game. Too bad there won't be a sequel.
Yeah, go play it. It's good, especially if you like Metroidvanias. Cool. Well, let's talk about number 9, The Rise of the Golden Idol. This is a sequel to The Case of the Golden Idol?
Yes.
Okay, I remembered the name. Which is a Obra Dinn-like.
Mm-hmm.
Can I call it that?
Sure.
You and I were talking, and I asked if you were a Golden Idol man or an Obra Dinn man. You said Golden Idol. Yeah. But you said that you don't know if Golden Idol exists without Obra Dinn.
Yeah, I think that's still true.
To me, it's like the perfect way to do like these like a detective game. And I shouldn't say detective, but like mystery, solving a mystery.
Because like it gives you just like you are exploring this little scene that has been played out and collecting keywords from that scene, and you have to like prove you understand it by like filling out like a Madlib basically. Yeah. Where it's kind of hard to verbs describe. And names have been taken out.
Yeah, to someone who hasn't played it before, but like, yeah, you just kind of click around the scene and look at everything, and you collect names and.
But like a lot of games have had like little mystery bits in them where like you basically just have to click on dialogue until you find the answer. But with this, like, you have to actually demonstrate understanding.
It's pretty hard to brute force it. Though I do like that, like, it tells you when you're like off by just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it would be pretty impossible without that. And I will say the one knock I'd maybe have against it is like sometimes you could kind of swap two words for the same thing. You know what I mean?
They did a patch that added a little bit of wiggle room for certain puzzles where, like, you were basically right, but you just picked the wrong keyword to represent the thing you were talking about.
Yeah. Interesting.
Which sounds like a good idea.
I think Rise is maybe a little less ugly than Case. It's still ugly.
Well, I like the way that these games are ugly, but...
Sure, it's ugly in like a charming, interesting way. The graphical style is unique.
Yeah. So, like, one thing I just want to mention is, like, the first game... These games take place in this, like, alternate reality, which is kind of like Earth, but, like, all the countries are different. But, like, it's like the first game, I think, is, like, in the 17 or 1800s. Mm-hmm. And, like, there's this magic idol that gives people powers, and, like, they're trying to use it to control the world, basically. And in this game, which takes place in the 1970s, the main people who have control of the idol are using it for much sillier and, like, short-sighted reasons.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that aspect of the story.
I was going to say, the first one was definitely, like, silly, but I think they have leaned into it.
Yeah, like, it's surprisingly funny considering how much murder takes place in it.
Yeah, Obra Dinn, by comparison, was a much more, like, serious. Maybe that's why I tend to lean that way. Like, horror underpinning story. But it's a very good time. I hope you think they'll keep making them?
There's at least going to be multiple expansions for this one, so.
They called this Rise of the Golden Idol, so if they keep making them, I imagine it'll be like Reign of the Golden Idol.
Something, yeah.
Now I'm trying to remember all the Planet of the Apes movies. Wasn't one Reign? Dawn of the Golden Idol.
Kingdom of the
Golden Idol. Yeah. Reign isn't one, is it?
No.
Damn it. I'm going to have to edit this to make myself look smarter. Anyways, go play that one too. That's number 9. But we're done with that. Number 8. Crow Country. Crow Country. Crow Country is an old school survival horror game. And by old school, I mean it looks like a PS1 video game. Graphically, it kind of looks like a mix between like Final Fantasy VII. I mean, it basically just looks like Final Fantasy VII. Maybe a little bit of like RE mixed in there.
Looks a little better than Final Fantasy VII, but...
Well, why do you say?
Just like the entire environment is polygonal and like better animated.
Yeah, and you can actually rotate like the camera around. Yeah, it's not,
but like it's very simple.
Yeah,
graphics.
I actually wish they had done, like, if you look at screenshots, you can't really tell, but I'm a hoe for the PS1 aesthetic.
Oh yeah, it's
not true like low resolution poly snapping stuff like that PS1 did. I think it would have been a little cooler if they'd leaned into that more. But it's a really simple, like, it's like 5-hour game. Play it over a weekend. But it really, for me, it just stood out how it's going to pull on my nostalgia, heartstrings a little bit. But also, I always gravitate towards that like keys open doors gameplay style. And I thought it was an interesting setting. And
do you want to describe the setting?
Yeah, you're this girl who is like ostensibly a detective or whatever, investigating a amusement park where stuff has gone awry. Mm-hmm. It's abandoned, and there's like just a bunch of monsters, increasingly more monsters around as you go through it. And you're there to find like the owner, who you can gather through the game is like done a bunch of shady dealings.
Yeah. The amusement park is the location for the entire game, and I like how the entire thing just sort of feels like it fits together as like one big puzzle.
Yeah, it's like there are dungos, as we would call them, but because the game is pretty short, they're not like as distinct. It's like, any land in an amusement park where there's like the haunted mansion area, and there's like the underwater exploration area and stuff like that.
It's all like a few rooms.
Fantasyland, right? And you'll jump between one and the other. Yeah. You don't just spend all your time for like a couple hours in that one space. And yeah, it's very like interconnected map, and there's even like some backroom stuff where like you get to access the area where like the staff go, and that's kind of cool, where it's like you can cut from one area of the park to the other. And I also think, maybe you'll think I'm stupid for this, the story of the game, it doesn't take itself seriously, but the story I actually think is weirdly well developed.
The story is definitely one of the better parts of the game.
Like, you kind of, because the game is like a little silly and like whatever, you kind of don't expect it to have like some actual like story behind it. But you can tell as you're going through it that there's like the thing that they're trying to do. You keep finding these like excavator machines and like stuff with, you know, unburying gold treasure and stuff like that. And you're like, what the hell's going on here?
It's an interesting mystery that adds up at the end to something even more interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, but just download it. Play it over a weekend.
Play the game.
Just play the game. And speaking of horror games that you can beat in a weekend, number 7 still wakes the deep.
Yeah.
It's still waking up. We can't stop it.
You can never stop the deep.
We try to give it a Klonopin, and it just will not fall asleep. Still Wakes the Deep is a poem that you can find in the game. For our eagle-eared viewers, I don't know. Matt, talk to me about Still Wakes the Deep.
It's a first-person cosmic horror game that...
Spoilers.
Well, it's like the first.
You
half
learn
hour.
it in like the first half hour. Yeah.
It takes place on a Scottish oil rig in like the 1970s. You're an electrician on the ship.
You're good with electrics.
You're good with
Eleckies.
Yeah, the game is very Scottish, and like it even has like subtitles that translate the Scottish dialect a bit to a normal person's understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny. They'll change like whole words.
Yeah.
Phrases. Yeah.
And you're just about to leave the rig when the drill hits something mysterious and strange.
Because of the polis. That's what they call the police. The polis.
Right.
Pretty sure.
And things go wrong. There's a big disaster. Some of the people on the rig die. Some of them get transformed into monsters, and it goes from there.
I'd say I don't know that it does much like groundbreaking in terms of like gameplay, but the setting and the like characters and all of that coming together in that kind of form factor is what makes it kind of special.
It's really well executed, even if nothing that it does is wholly unique or something you haven't seen before. I mean,
the closest touch point I would say would be like The Thing. You know, and
that's
like
The
a
Thing
remote setting that's like cold and hard to get to, and a extra dimensional being is turning your friends into weird, gross monsters.
Yeah. And I've usually like this whole subgenre of horror where you can't fight at all. There's no combat. Yeah. And I've kind of avoided it because it doesn't seem appealing to me, but I played this game and I really liked it, so I've actually considered checking out some of those other games like that.
Most of those games, I think my biggest issue is just annoyance. Like, so we were talking about this when we were talking about Soma, which may have been one of our games of the year a couple of years ago. Very good game. You should play that too. But with Soma, I think they now have a no combat mode or something like that. Just turn off the enemy encounters because they ruin the game. This game, at least, there was only one monster encounter that I was kind of like annoyed by because I just kept dying like right out the gate, and I think I just wanted to go a direction the game didn't want me to go. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I just needed to kind of change that up. But for the most part, I got through most encounters without.
Yeah, it's like not designed to frustrate you. It's designed to just like propel you through the story to the next part.
Yeah, like the very first encounter with Gibbo, I want to say. They got weird, fucked up names on this oil rig. These Scottish people got to work on their names. Also, every time he sees one of his friends in the dark at a distance who's been turned into like a giant tentacle monster, he's like, "Oh, it's Fitzgibbons or something." And I'm like, "How the fuck do you know?"
He recognizes their silhouette.
He looks like a bunch of blobs. I do like that they're still talking and they still kind of have like their personalities.
Yeah, but
like the first guy. So I got through that area without even seeing him, which was actually kind of cool. Yeah. Because like I was hearing him and he was ostensibly like right behind me the whole time, but he just kept screaming at me something like "Don't look at me" or something like that. And the main character was like talking back to him like, "I'm not looking at you" or whatever. And it's like, oh shit, what does he look like? It's like, it sounds fucked up. But anyway, it's a cool game. Anything more you want to say on that one?
I recommend that you play it.
Okay. I recommend that you play it too. That's why it's on my list of top 10 games of the year. But let's play past it and talk about number 6, which is Space Marine 2.
Warhammer
40,000 Space Marine 2. Is there any other part of that title?
Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2.
The Reckoning.
The understanding.
The understanding of the Horus heresy.
Of
Space Marine 2 is a sequel to a game that came out like 11, more than that even, years ago.
I think it came out in 2011. So like
yeah. So like a long time.
a long time ago.
So really strange to have, in my opinion, a direct sequel. Like it starts off with the same main character and everything. I was kind of thinking it may be like a different Space Marine. It's like, no, it's a... I mean, it takes place hundreds of years afterwards, but, you know, Space Marines can live a long time.
Yeah.
Then you pick up with Titus. I want to say right where he left off. He's been with the Black Guard? Black something.
They got all those different Marine factions. I don't understand it.
He's with one. So you pick up, and just like the first game, for those who have played it, I think they do a really good job. I'm curious what Games Workshop and Warhammer's like structure is with licensing out their stuff to publishers and other studios and stuff, because they always seem to have like a deep appreciation and get the lore really nailed down. Like I assume they must just work with consultants.
They gotta, yeah.
Because like that stuff is like seems very dialed in. It's like a really cool backdrop. It's no secret that 40K lore is like cool.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of game people who like it, so they get the chance to work on
It's a natural
the
fit.
series. It's like, I know this shit.
Yeah.
I can do a game about this.
But just like the first one, for anyone who's played it, I had a very nice time. It's a really good, fun third-person action game. And what I liked about this one was the co-op aspect. So like I ended up playing through like several of the missions a couple times with like different groups of people. So like you and I ran through it all together. I ran through it with like a couple of my other buddies, and like it's just, you know, it lends itself well to that, I think.
Yeah. It's fun just to blast bugs with your boys.
Blasting bugs with your boys. The one thing, yeah. So I don't know. I don't want to launch into criticisms. I mean, really fun. I feel like it was a little more varied than the first one, because you played the first one leading up to this.
Yeah. So like the first game had moments, because it wasn't co-op, where you were like separated from your squad mates.
Yeah.
But they weren't necessarily actually different from a gameplay perspective. It's just like you were alone.
Yeah.
This game has like at least more situations where like you have to defend certain objects or people from
Get the things off the
whatever's
radio
going on.
towers.
Like you're constantly being swarmed by these armies of
use
aliens.
the flamethrower to get these little rats
Yeah.
off you. Rats off you. But the one, and maybe they fixed this with like a patch, but we were playing through it on veteran mode and just got to a point where it was like way too hard. Like we were just dying over and over again. And we're good at games, all right? But we dropped it down to like normal mode, and it was just like way too easy. So I do think like I said, maybe they've
It'd be hard
patched
to
it since
find-
then, but
find
work
the
on that
balance.
balance a little bit.
Yeah.
I also would have liked a little more factions, because you're fighting in the first game. You're fighting orcs until you're fighting chaos. Like it's like a halfway point through the game where oh shit, actually chaos is here. And basically, I mean spoilers, but the same thing happens in this one where you're fighting Tyranids. Oh shit, now you're fighting chaos.
Yeah.
And I would have liked. There's so many cool factions.
At
and
least
stuff
it's a
in the
different
Warhammer.
chaos faction.
Sure, it's the something of the sun, whatever, Thousand Suns. That's what it is. Yeah, they're cool. It's like you do like they're filled with like cosmic dust. So like you blow them up and they just like poof.
Yeah.
Or like you pull off their helmets and they just like their heads are full of it's like sparks and shit.
It's a very nice looking game.
Yeah, it looks really good, and it just like it's very smooth. The sequences where you have like a jetpack, it's just like so much stuff just feels good. Like when you rail into like a huge group, or like you do like a big slam, and it's just like tons of enemies.
You counter a big guy perfectly.
Yeah, the counters are good. Actually, that's the thing, is like I was anticipating less like melee stuff, I guess. Maybe I don't. It's been so long since I played.
Well,
the
the first
original.
game was like a pretty even split. This game also was. I think the melee is more interesting in this one because of the counter system and all that.
Yeah, and it took me a while to get used to the various systems, but there's like a gun parry thing, or just like if you get off an extra shot, it's like that's really satisfying when you do it. There's tons of enemies. It's like kind of Dynasty Warriors-ish, in which there's tons of enemies that are just fodder. Like they don't mean anything. They just feel good to kill. But anyway, yeah, that's Space Marine 2. Why don't we get in the top 5? This is where the real money is made. Number 5.
The prize money that we give out to the
Prize money.
the developers.
Yeah, you guys haven't heard about the prize money. No, not the developers, the fans of this.
Oh, we give fans money?
Yeah. You didn't know that? It's a lot.
Oh.
It's like $10 million. Actually, I wonder if I can get in legal trouble for saying that. We don't do that. Number 5, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes.
Yeah.
What a cool name. Let's talk about it, Matt.
So the whole game is sort of a mystery where you are this woman who shows up at this strange hotel in the middle of the woods, and it's sort of like a Resident Evil style location where everything's locked up with these arcane locks that you don't understand, and like you're just sort of trying to uncover the mystery of this hotel that you're exploring while also uncovering the mystery of the whole story, explaining why you're there and what it all actually is supposed to be.
An impressive amount of not telling you anything in this game.
At least not telling you directly.
For a game that has like characters and dialogue, you know? Well, sometimes they'll come right out of the gate and just tell you. So I feel two ways about this game. I feel like if we had like a best style category, I feel like this would definitely be a strong contender because it's stylistically super interesting. It's like all black and white except for red and some kind of pinks. Like there's like grunge textures overlaid over like very minimalist presentation of, some rooms just kind of like fade off into like black polygons that go nowhere. And it's just like from even like the menu decisions, like I don't think they're necessarily the best. It's kind of like a one button.
The whole game is a one button game.
Yeah. So like there's no back button, which is like kind of frustrating, but also like, I don't know, it's just interesting from a design perspective. My big, I probably became frustrated by this game more than any other game this year. And I kept saying to you, I think I'm too stupid to play this game. I don't like looking up like hints and stuff in games, and I did it for this a lot, I would say.
Yeah. So it's a puzzle game, and there's lots of puzzles, and it can be frustrating if a puzzle just is not reading to you. Like
some of them are quite hard, in my opinion.
Some of them, especially like near the end, like you really have to pay really close attention, and like sometimes it's not super intuitive. And also, well, one thing I like about this game is that a lot of the solutions are like randomized, so you can't really look up a solution. You can only look up how to find the solution.
Yeah.
So I think
you get like
the game could have used like a hint system.
Even like some like the books and stuff that you get that lead to clues are in like different areas, right?
Well, like there's a hint book for the different shortcuts.
Yeah.
But the order that the shortcuts puzzles are is randomized.
Right. So like you might find door number 16 in the cabin outside, or it could be in the third floor of the mansion that you end up getting towards the end of the game.
Door 16 is always the same, but which puzzle corresponds to door 16 changes. But yeah, so like it's just a lot of it's just a lot of puzzles.
It's super unique.
For me, most of them I thought were interesting and fun to solve. Some of them were a bit frustrating.
It's very hard to describe, I think. I would call it a big math game. But not like you're not doing like long division. I just mean like numbers.
There's a lot of numbers and like
numberology.
Logic. Like a lot of these puzzles you could find in like a puzzle book published for
especially the
like
shortcuts.
Teenagers.
Those are very like, they're like math problems, like a number sequence, figure out what's wrong with this number sequence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I guess where I would get frustrated is like I'd come across some puzzles that were so easy that it's like the word, 1847 is written on the wall and there's a padlock right next to it and the padlock is 1847. Like that level of simplicity. And then there are some that I'm like, I don't know how the hell you would ever figure that out.
Yeah.
So because of that, if something was kind of simple, it would make me think it was more complex and I would like not even try the simple answer. And then some would be so hard I'd just be like, no.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the story and the presentation and everything, I would say, is like top notch.
Yeah. And also, similar to Crow Country, I liked how like you have all these different puzzles and you don't really know what they mean once you find the answer. But like by the end of the game, like pretty much every puzzle comes together and like is important to solving the final mystery.
I always love finding some door or something like right away in a game and not opening it or figuring out the solution until like the end.
Yeah.
It's like I finally got that goddamn clock puzzle. It's been the bane of my existence. I also very much appreciate, we're talking about PS1 style. There are 3 game consoles that you have to debug in the game, and they are aggressively Resident Evil inspired, I would say.
Yeah.
And they play the Silent Hill 2 pickup sound effect. It's slightly warped, but we know what it is.
Yeah, they obviously have played some survival horror
These
games.
guys have played Silent Hill 2 and Resident Evil 1, okay? Don't get it twisted. Anything else you want to say about that?
Nope. It's a good game.
Let's talk about Batro.
Number 4.
I should say number 4, Batro. Now I'm all screwed up. So Batro is a solitaire playing card game where you just kind of get various hands and you try to make hands out of decks of cards. But unlike regular cards, there are Joker cards that basically add abilities to your hands and also like multiply how much credit you get for every hand that you play.
Yeah, so you're playing poker hands, but the value of them, and like it's like at first you think you're just like, well, I gotta play the best
get a
poker
straight.
hand
I'm
I
gonna
can
get a
find.
flush.
But as you play the game, you modify your deck, you modify the rules,
Right.
And it quickly like the
Becomes
poker is just like
something
a
else.
signifier for like this whole system of cards coming together to create these crazy combinations.
I should mention it's a roguelite. It's a run-based game.
I would say roguelike.
I'm surprised you're not typically a run man.
Well, like it seems like once a year there's like one that people are like, hey, this one's really good, and I play. I'm like, yeah, that's a good game.
Hey, and brief aside, you offhandedly mentioned to me that you have decided that Binding of Isaac is a good game.
Yeah, Binding of Isaac is good.
So I just wanted to
here's what
I just wanted to dunk on that one real quick that I was right and Matt admitted it.
So like what I like about like games like Vampire Survivors and Hades and also Batro is like you are constantly making interesting decisions.
Yep.
Like what power should I get? Like what fits my current build? What will synergize well?
Yep.
Binding of Isaac, you don't know what the stuff is unless you've experienced it before or you look it up. Yeah. Which to me, when I'm playing Binding of Isaac, not that that's what we're talking about, I keep like a tab open to the wiki and I just look up what it is because I'm not going to ruin a run by picking up something that like, hey, your tears now explode and you're going to be hurting yourself all over the place. So anyway,
Batro
is a game that just like is 100% interesting decisions.
Yeah.
Like there's no real, like you choose your strategy and what hands you play.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much all just like building up your deck, building up your multipliers.
There's almost like a
getting the right
tactical
jokers.
aspect to it because like towards if your amount of jokers get like you get 5 max. If you get enough
sort
of them, what's that?
Sort of.
Well, okay, we can talk about that. But you get 5 jokers, so like at a certain point, there's a lot of intersections and synergies in what they do, and like you might think like, oh, I've got a straight flush here. That's the best thing you can play. But like it would actually be better to play this, pair of 3s that you have and nothing else.
Right.
Like just based on the way that your deck has been built and the way that the jokers are set up.
Right.
So the run I just won was I had a pretty baller joker that would let me play straights with skips in between the cards. So I could play like a hand that was like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and that would count as a straight. So I was getting straights left and right. And then I happened to get enough celestial cards that basically upped my multiplier on straights to times 10. So if I got one straight, it was like bare minimum 10,000 credits or whatever. And then I had other multipliers on top of that. So you mentioned the jokers thing. Is there a run where you can just stack like endless jokers?
Well, so there's at least one. You can choose different decks in the game which have different rules. Like one will give you an extra hand each ante. One will give you an extra
My favorite one so
discard.
far.
One will give you an extra joker slot.
Okay.
And there's also negative jokers, which you can get like. So jokers, you can get modifiers. I don't know if you've seen any of these.
Probably.
Like a negative joker does not take up a slot. So if you have a bunch of negative jokers, you could have like 10 if 5 of them are negative.
But they're negative.
Well, the negative just means they don't take up a slot, but they still operate otherwise as a normal joker.
Because I was going to say, one thing I like about like a Binding of Isaac, for example, is just like stacking on stacking on stacking.
You can get some
like crazy
stacks.
Yeah. I got stacks on stacks. Anyway, it's been like a very big like runaway success. I think I heard like a quote from the developer that was like, I was planning on like my family and like 3 of my friends buying this game. So
Yeah.
that's kind of cool to see that. It's not crazy complex, but I'm always impressed with how much game you can squeeze out of like that type of gameplay.
Yeah. You should, if you want, you could check out YouTube because there's like tons of Batro videos of like breaking the game and all these crazy things you can do. I haven't gotten that far into it.
I think it'd be good for like casual gamers too because it has that poker thing that
it's
like you
like
can
that
latch
good
onto.
roguelike thing where like there's levels, like there's the standard level where you can just like try and get clears to get to the end of the game and like, yeah, you won, but you can like get like ridiculous.
I just mean it'd be a good
combinations
gateway
too.
for people who would never like my mom or whatever who would never play a traditional rogue like video game, but she knows what poker is, so she'd be like, oh yeah, sure, you know what I mean. Anyway,
it's addictive. It's fun.
It's very fun. I would recommend it.
Don't gamble though.
Yeah, gambling's bad.
Gambling's bad. Balastro's good.
Gambling's bad. Balastro's good. That's the takeaway this year. Let's talk about number 3, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So how great is this circle, Matt?
It's pretty stupendous.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Talk to me about it.
So this game is, I would say, a first-person immersive sim.
Immersive sim. It's giving immersive sim.
It's giving that. You are Indiana Jones.
No shit.
Explorer, archaeologist,
Ladies man.
Nazi puncher.
Yeah.
And you are put on this quest to, like, basically, something is stolen from Indy. He goes on a journey to to get it back, to figure out why was it stolen, and he gets caught up in this whole conspiracy mystery where there's Nazis searching for these artifacts and all
Indiana
that stuff.
Jones is fighting Nazis?
Once again, he is fighting Nazis.
And
with
Machine
roller
Games is
pins,
producing it?
with fly swatters, with guitars, anything you can get your hands on, you can whack a Nazi with.
You can whack a Nazi.
So you're going around these different locations, solving puzzles, hiding from Nazis, punching them, shooting them if you want, but I really didn't do that much.
No, actually, I've not used the gun once. Spoiler, I have not beaten the game, I'll admit that. But yeah, I will say I have straight up gotten, like, I've tried to be sneaky where I can, but like a lot of time I'll just like, okay, I'm just fighting these guys now.
I mean, it's like,
and it's not that bad.
there are certain situations where you really don't want to get caught, but usually if you get caught, you can just
Not the end of the world.
pound some Nazi faces.
I'm like running through the Vatican with like a bunch of fascists.
I mean, to be fair, it's not all Nazis. A lot of it is like Italian white shirts.
They've just been calling them fascists
Right.
rather than Nazis.
But in any case, you're fighting people who deserve it. And
Who deserve it.
it's just really fun to explore these worlds and
Yes.
find collectibles and just do all this stuff.
It's very so I feel like this is not a spoiler because it's right at the start of the game, but the tutorial basically replays Raiders of the Lost Ark's like, infamous opening scene, but it uses it as a tutorial to like show you how to use the whip and just the basic controls and stuff. And that's a really smart way to like get into it with a thing that and like reintroduce you to the character and like also just get people on board who are obviously fans of the source material. I just thought it was really smart and charming.
Yeah, it reintroduces you to Indy if you haven't watched the movie in a while, and like it reminds you what you like about Indy and like teaches you how to play the game at the same time.
Speaking of Indy, he looks good as Harrison Ford. Troy Baker has a damn good Harrison Ford impression.
It works better when he's like in a lower register.
Yeah.
If he gets like animated, it doesn't work quite as well, but it's very good performance.
But like I think Harrison Ford might have even commented on it and complimented it. But and you mentioned punching Nazis. I even think like down to like the punching sound effect that it plays is like the old fashioned like 80s like really overwrought sound is cute.
Man, it's fun to pound guys in this game.
A big, I don't even want to say criticism because that's not what it is. Comment I see on social channels and stuff like that about this game is like, why is this first person? And it's just like, because that's the kind of game it is, man.
Yeah.
Like people just can't wrap their head around why this would not be third person.
It's so you can like see everything that you're looking at.
I don't know, immersive. It's an immersive sim game. Those are typically not third person.
Yeah, they're usually first person because like you need to be able to like look closely at things to
also it's not an action game. It's meant to be an exploration adventure game where you're solving puzzles and going through catacombs and shit.
There's action in it, but its focus is more on exploring and
And I think
and
anyone
taking
who
in the
actually
mystery.
played the game would get that. Like, they would... Shut up. It's just such an asinine comment.
Play the game.
Play the gosh dang game. All right, just 2 left. You know what that means. It's time for number 2, Animal Well. Well, animals.
Full of animals.
The best game with the worst name. I just
I think it's a fine name.
Animal Well. It doesn't even seem much like a well. It's an underground area, I guess.
Well, it does wrap around.
Okay, like circular.
Yeah.
Okay. Animal Well. So I am despite my frustrations with Lorelei, I am a liker of games that don't hold your hand. And I would say Animal Well is a champion of not telling you shit.
Yeah.
Is there any? I guess there's like little tiny text for like descriptions of items and stuff like that, but generally doesn't tell you where to go, what to do.
No, it's really...
Figure it out, genius.
A lot of it's just like observation, like...
Yes.
Like there's different sections of the map. This is another Metroidvania.
Yes, should mention.
And like
where you play as a
you can
bean.
kind of tell where you are just like based on the kind of like stuff that's in the background.
Yeah. The general environment. It's environmental,
Like
not environmental
I think each, like
storytelling.
isn't each section
guidance.
like themed after an animal?
Yeah.
So like you see
like
statues of that animal there.
So like a good example is you'll get a flute at one point as an item, and you have no idea what the flute does. It just when you play it, it goes
toot on it. Yeah.
and it's fun. At a certain point, you get to a room that looks like it's got a bunch of like animal heads on the wall, and it appears to be like a warp room or whatever, but you don't really know how to use it. They look like the bird masks in Mario 2, for reference.
If you're at least 35 years old.
If you're at least 35 years old, you'll remember that. Hey, who hasn't played Mario 2? It's one of the best Marios. If you go into, it's kind of secret, but like you can find like a little hole in the wall to go into like a basement of that room, and there's a little hippo.
Isn't it a fish?
No, yeah, right. I'm sorry. The hippo head is from that room, but there's like a narwhal. I think maybe it's a narwhal. It's a fish of some kind, and he's like jumping out of the water in a certain direction, and it's like somewhat rhythmic. And I was just like, hang on a second, and I busted out the flute, and I did like the 4 directions he was kind of doing, and it suddenly went like bwamp and warped me to that room. I think it was right.
The top room where all the warp or the different zones are. Yeah.
Yes. So that's just an example of like the kind of puzzle this game will present to you. It's like you will make these connections just because you see familiar things, or you're just like trying things out, and it just leads to really cool like moments like that.
Yeah. Like every room in the game has like a clever puzzle in it to figure out, and like you collect these different items, which are basically all like child toys, but they all have really...
Or eggs.
Well, the eggs are different, but like your equipment is like
Bubble wand,
like
frisbee.
These clever ways to either like distract enemies or solve puzzles or move around.
Firecrackers. Interestingly, so like the bubble wand is a good example. There's a lot of, and like especially in Metroidvanias, I find there's like a lot of like things that you can access early, but the game didn't necessarily intend it. So like if you are good enough, you can make this long jump that the game maybe doesn't intend you to be able to make, or like use another ability to get across these vines or something like that later on you'd be easily able to get to when you unlock the double jump. But basically the game does a lot of things like that are intentional but don't feel like they are. So like the bubble wand, you can use a bubble and you can stand on it. But if you launch another bubble, it'll destroy the one that you're on. So like you can only use it, so it basically like a double jump. But if you jump at the same time as launching another bubble, you can basically create like an infinite staircase for yourself. So early on I learned that and I was like, am I supposed to be able to do this?
I did not do that.
You didn't do that?
No.
Holy shit. Do that, people who are listening. Because
you don't need to do it, but
I don't know how I would have significantly helpful.
So like there's multiple levels of completion of the game.
Yeah. Yes.
To reach the first level of completion, you don't need to use that technique. So
it's a game changer. But eventually, if you unlock more and more stuff, you'll get a bubble gun that just lets you like launch as many as you want. But you can basically unlock that early. There's also things like if you jump on the frisbee, which you can jump on the frisbee, which is another unknown ability, but or not advertised. But if you jump on it, it's hard to describe. I'm not going to get into it. But basically, the game rocks. It's very, satisfying. And what you mentioned with the different levels of victory, this is probably wrong, but to my understanding, there's like the basic saw credits. This is the ending. Then there's collecting. I want to say there's 63 eggs in the game, which will unlock like ending tier 2, which I think is more of a true ending math. And then
I didn't want to collect 25 more eggs or whatever.
Yeah, but that's the best part. Maybe it's because you didn't know about the freaking bubble wand. The next one, as I understand it, there's like a rabbit mural in the game. You found that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to miss, but there's like a explosive room underneath that you can get to that lets you like switch codes on it or something. I do not understand what it does, but I think you need to know like binary code to be able to figure out what it is. I hear people in the subreddit talking about bunnies and stuff. I got no idea what they're talking about. But I think whatever they solve there requires like, code language to get to the third tier.
There's a lot of secrets in this game.
And then as far as I understand, there's like a 4th tier ending that nobody's figured out yet. So it's very involved. And I think it was also made by one guy, and he made like a custom language, custom engine for the game.
Yeah.
So very impressive.
Well, he actually, I know that I think the main reason he built his own engine is so it would be not data mineable.
No.
People trying to figure out secrets without actually figuring them out.
That's funny. That would make sense why no one's kind of uncovered that yet. But it's extremely good. But it's not quite as good as our number 1 game of the year, which is Astrobot. Astrobot. Describe Astrobot in one word.
Joy.
Aw. I think that worked. I think that's perfect, man. It's done. No need to say anything more.
That's it? All right.
No, talk about Astrobot.
It's a 3D platformer that I would say is on the level of quality equal to like a Mario game.
Some might even say it surpasses it.
I think
say that.
Like, as just like a pure platformer, it's not the greatest, but all the levels are very clever and like have fun secrets to find. It's a very beautiful game. Very like the game. It's on PS5 only because it uses the PS5 controller. It's like you have all these haptics in it that like are such a key part of the game. Like the entire game feel is built around like it's just like
it's a PS5
it's a PS5 game. Like you need to have that to experience part of the fun of the game. It looks great. It sounds great.
I love like knocking over a bunch of chestnuts and then just like punching them and hearing the sound of like plinky plunkies coming through my controller.
Yeah, it's just like a game built to make you feel good.
Yeah.
Like there's tons of cameos for different PlayStation stuff in the game that you find that make it fun to explore and find those secrets. And I don't know, it's just...
I don't like to throw this around a lot, but like if you don't like Astrobot, I feel there's something a little... who hurt you, you know? It's such a pure experience.
Yeah, like there's also like cynical reads on it.
Where,
it's all like, oh, this is all just brand.
I don't really.
Like,
I've heard that too as a criticism that it's like a big commercial, and that really does seem like quite a cynical attitude.
Itself, I don't know.
Right.
Like
you can view it as a commercial, or you can view it as a celebration of these things. The one area where I think maybe I could see it feeling like a commercial is like where you are like putting the PS5 back together. Like after every major world that you visit, like you restore another piece of your PS5, which is like your ship that is like crash landed on this world, and like you kind of like lovingly rebuild
you already
it,
bought
put
a
the
PS5,
screws back
so
in.
It's just like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and I think it all comes together with, maybe I should save this for later, but there's a really nice moment at the end of the game where like the whole army of like dudes you've been building up this whole time like comes together to tackle like the final boss, and like all of the PlayStation consoles like come back as various ships. Like you see the PS1 and like the Vita and like the PS2 and shit in there, and like all the controllers, and it's like a really, not only are you collecting these little like Astrobot versions of character, like, you know, famous PlayStation characters at that time, but like you see that aspect of it too, and like you use them as like it's like a shooter, what do you call it, shoot 'em up, a shmup game at the end. Like it's just it's one of those gaming moments that just makes you like your icy heart melts, your heart that's been jaded by turning into a gosh dang adult.
If you have any affection for PlayStation. But
Yeah.
just like the history of games, I think it's worth checking out.
If, I'm playing through it and I get to like the first boss and like I'm like, oh, who's it going to be? And it was like Ape Escape. And I'm like, oh, I remember Ape Escape.
Yeah.
I played that on a demo. Actually, I think I had Ape Escape. Yeah, I did. Not the easiest
So
game.
what's funny is that Ape Escape was made by Japan Studio, which Sony shut down and like moved people into this studio that made this game.
So they were patting themselves on the back for that one.
Yeah.
But like Kratos is in the game. Pyramid Head is in the game. Demon Souls is in the game.
The Bloodborne Hunter. is in the
Bloodborne,
game.
yep. And there's all these little like
the guy from Days Gone is in the game.
Yeah. There were a couple like exclusive characters or whatever that I was like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, definitely.
It was rare though. I think I got most of the obscure. Oh, there was a Mr. Mosquito reference.
Yep.
For God's sake, if you don't like that, screw you. Also, just real quick, another like, I don't even want to say criticism, but like just comment I see on like social is like, this was the game of the year, and it'll be like someone playing through Astrobot, and there's like no other commentary, and I'm like, what? And I think the idea is like it doesn't look that good, or like it's not as impressive as like Wukong or something like that. But it's like, play the game.
Yeah.
Do you not like video games, you a-hole?
It is a good video game.
It is.
A very good one.
It is, some would say, the best game of 2024.
I would say it.
Yeah, it's just I think your one word was good. It was joy, and if you like platformers, it's a unskippable, I would say. Real quick, I'll just throw out Jeff Gerstmann. I think when he was talking about Mario Odyssey, there was the Jump Up Superstar song and like mission, whatever you want to call it, in that game.
Yeah.
And he said like that filled him with like a sense of like nostalgia and like it warmed him over a little bit. Like I got that feeling from this game several times.
Yeah.
Especially the ending. So it's good.
It's fun, good.
Play it. Buy a PS5 and play it. The most expensive one you can find. Well, that's our list. There are some honorable mentions, of course.
As always.
I'm going to start. You may have noticed Elden Ring was not on this list, the DLC Shadow of the Erd Tree, just because it was a DLC. But we talked about it. I think it clearly would have been because From Software does no wrong. And Elden Ring is a fantastic game, and this DLC is no different. It's also like 40 hours at least or something like that.
It's really good. Like the reason I wouldn't put it on a list like this is because I like to say like here's a bunch of new games you can play if you haven't played them.
Yeah.
They're really good. This game, Erd Tree, you have to have played Elden Ring already.
Yeah.
If you haven't played Elden Ring, you should play it. It's awesome.
Yes.
And then play this.
Extremely good. Yes.
But like you need to go through that before you can enjoy this experience. So that's why I would say I won't put it on a top 10, but it is really good.
Yes.
And definitely worth checking out.
From Software DLCs, they're pretty much the only DLCs I play. I'm just going to go through mine, and then you can talk about yours now. Weird one I'll just throw out there. Another Crab's Treasure while we're talking about Souls-likes. Random game I was playing towards the start of the year when I didn't have anything else to play. It is a Souls-like, but like a weird one because it's like a cutesy crab game. But it's actually quite good. It's got a lot of like humor to it. Like it reminds me of like a Double Fine, like a Double Fine type game.
Okay.
A lot of like cheeky, they say like instead of saying crap, they say crab. Just like little stuff like that. But and it actually has some interesting like unique gameplay things to it. Like you pick up different shells that give you different abilities through the game, and like your shells are your like shield. So like some shells are tougher than others, some will break. Things like that, and also like the weapons that you pick up are have kind of unique characteristics in the same way. So I think it's definitely worth checking out. And then finally, this may turn into an entirely separate discussion, but I wanted to mention the Silent Hill 2 remake. I'd say it just edged out of being our top 10. I have very complicated feelings about Silent Hill 2 remake. Silent Hill 2 is my favorite game of all time, as you may know if you follow this channel at all. I said before it came out, there is no way I will like this game. I still don't know if I'd say I like it. But when I first started playing it, I was like, wow, they actually did it. They made it. I like this game. And I kind of have soured on it more and more over time. I feel like you and I feel similarly about it, but of course I'm more of a SH2 stan.
Yeah. As someone who I appreciate Silent Hill 2 a lot, I don't love it as much as you do. I think this is a like very well-made remake that doesn't really understand the original game very well.
Harsh criticism.
It's a fun, well, you know what I mean, like as far as like horror action games go, it's well made.
It's a good...
It's like a not a bad experience, but it has issues.
Yes. What about you?
I only have one that I want to mention, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. You know what it's like
Yakuza.
when you feel like you liked something before it was popular?
Yeah.
Like I've been
You
playing
liked it before it was cool.
the Yakuza games since the first one on PS2.
Look at
I
you.
think this is the most fun I've actually had playing one of these games.
Wow.
Not the best story in the series, but it's just really fun to walk around Hawaii with your pals and beat up weird criminals.
I should check out the Yakuza games at some point. Is it not called Yakuza? It's just called Like a Dragon?
So the series was always called Like a Dragon in Japan. The previous game, they wanted to change it from Yakuza to Like a Dragon, so they called it Yakuza Like a Dragon, and now going forward, the series is Like a Dragon, whatever.
Seems like tough branding for the US. Like a Dragon.
I don't know. I think if they just called it Like a Dragon from the start, it would have been fine. But like, it's kind of weird to change the name of the series.
I don't know if it would have been as popular in the US versus Yakuza. I don't know.
Well, because the thing is, like, the main character of the last couple games is not like he's a former Yakuza.
Yeah.
Technically, like the main character was always a former.
What
Yakuza,
if they called it
but,
The Last Yakuza? Then it would have done gangbusters.
like the series? Like it's like this sort of the story arc that's gone through the whole thing, where like it's sort of like about the Yakuza like changing from like this underground force to like they become more and more marginalized in modern Japan.
Sure.
So
Like
it
any-
doesn't really make sense to call
like
it Yakuza
Sopranos.
when it's like just sort of Yakuza adjacent a lot of the time.
Gotcha. Cool.
Good game though.
Rate 2024.
I give it an 8 out of 10 for games.
Okay. Strong.
A lot of good games.
Maybe not the best.
Not as many amazing games, but you know, if you like, you mentioned you like PS1
I think this is
aesthetics.
a solid list.
You should watch. I mean, you should play Mouth Watching, but
Okay. I will talk
That's-
to you about that afterwards, but not now.
the
'cause we're-
final word on 2024.
Yeah. Oh, that is the final word?
That's it.
I thought you were going to give us a final word.
That was the final word.
Would you like to try?
2024.
That's terrible.